Hello, hello.
Welcome back. Oh, we just said it at the exact same time. Welcome back to the Learning Collective podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I have a notebook in front of me because I've taken some notes and I want to make sure I get it right. So today we are talking about, are you laughing at me?
I'm just laughing at the fact that you had to make sure that people knew that you had a notebook in front of you.
Well, the funny thing is, if you did try to zoom in and read it, you wouldn't be able to read it because my handwriting's horrible.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about financial awareness in your business. As we're talking about this, if you do not have a business, a small business and that kind of thing, listen to this as well because some of this could apply to your finances personally. Mm-hmm. But this is really diving into something we have seen with a lot of small business owners, tends to be with more creative small business owners, is they assume they're making money in their business and they just keep going. And when we dig in a little bit deeper and ask some more questions with them, it turns out like they're losing money in their business or that kind of thing. Or there's places they could be making some small changes that would make a big impact and that kind of thing too. So we will provide a download for this. You'll be able to find the download link. We'll put it on collectivelearning.com and for you to be able to download for free. But we thought we'd go through some of these questions and just kind of give some more. So you could download that and come back and then listen to us talk through the questions as well. I'll probably be talking more on this than Pat will.
Yeah, well, because you handle more of the finances, so
I do. It's not my favorite thing, but I've learned a lot in it. And when I say it's not my favorite thing, it's because you have to pay attention to them. And so sometimes I just wish we could ignore it.
Yeah.
But
I don't even do them very much or help with that very much, and I wish we didn't have to do them.
Yeah, exactly. So. It's part, if you are going to get into business and you think you're not going to have anything to do with finances, even if you hire somebody to do your finances, you still have to be aware of what's going on because not to scare you or anything, but you can't just blindly hire somebody to do your finances and not be in the know of it as well, if that makes any sense. You need to be aware. I
hope we know that, but yeah.
Yeah, again, that's why we said awareness in your finances and business. So looking back on last year, and I know we are towards the end of January, that doesn't matter. You can do this anytime. Whatever you define your year as, that's going to be different for each of us. Sometimes that is January to January or January to end of December. Sometimes it's more of a different fiscal year, that kind of thing. You can define that too. If you wanted to start in February, you can define that for your business. Yeah. The only thing I will say is depending where you live and that kind of thing, the tax year is defined you don't get to change that. So understand what the tax year is, and sometimes it's easiest to base your things off of that, but sometimes it's not because sometimes it's a little wonky. So understand your tax year for sure.
Yep.
So the first question ask yourself is, what income did my business, this is not your personal income, did you bring in? What income did my business bring in and how? So the first thing I'm going to say before we even jump into these, if you do not have your business money separate from your personal money, you've got to start that now. Mm-hmm. Open up a bank account and maybe a savings account or something that is just for your business, and then you'll pay yourself an income to your personal account. Mm-hmm. If you keep everything in the same, it's super hard to keep track of things. And then when it comes down to taxes, we are not tax experts, because there's way too many differences in taxes everywhere, including the United States, within the states, different states. However, it doesn't matter where you live when it comes down to taxes. You have to be able to track your expenses and your income that your business got in, and then how much you paid yourself. That's how they determine how much you pay them. So with that, if you haven't done that, that would be something I would put down as your number one thing to start off the year. I know, again, it's one of those things. It's not fun to do. Depending what you're doing, sometimes it's easy to set up an account, sometimes it's not, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But even if you didn't do that yet, you can go back in the personal and figure out where did I spend, or where did the money come from. So it could be if you have an Etsy shop, you can go in and see there's a place where you can go into finances. You can go up to the time span, and you could do the whole year. You can do by month, whatever it may be, and you can see how much income you had, but then also your expenses, which we'll get into in a second. if you're just starting this out, you can just put Etsy and you can put down how much income you had, and then wherever else you might sell, an art show or something like that, and your income you had from that. As you go deeper into this, and this takes more, I know, effort and stuff like that, it's even more important to find out what are the things that are selling.
Yeah.
So if you sell t-shirts and mugs, maybe you sold 3 mugs in the year, but the whole rest of your business income was from the t-shirts. That's important to know because maybe you don't need to sell mugs anymore, or maybe you need to tweak something with the mugs. Maybe it's not, you're getting enough SEO traffic to that, or whatever it may be. So it is important to understand what you're selling, because you could be spending a lot of money on producing journals and they don't ever sell. But you don't ever know that. I mean, you might know that if you have the physical products, you might know that. But even the type of artwork that sells is super important to pay attention to as well, and see what that is. Once you get this set up, we highly recommend you do it every month that you look at these things. I even sometimes look every week at some of this stuff, but we track like the exact product and how much it sells, because that we might make another product in it.
Or it's like a certain type of artwork that's on different types of products.
Yes, or something like that. And so it makes you make good business decisions, if that makes any sense. So after you have figured out how much you had come in as income for your business and where it came from, you can get as specific as you want to. The more specific, the better. I know that takes time, but it is worth it. Then you go into the next question is, what did I spend last year in my business, and where did I spend it? So basically, you're looking at income and expenses. I know this sounds basic for some of you, maybe like, yeah, duh. But it's not basic for a lot of us for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it, first of all, they don't teach this in schools, which in most schools, they should. I think everybody...
We've been out of school for a while. So
we have been out of school. Well, our kids haven't learned it so far.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's depending on what type of school you're talking about.
True, exactly.
So.
In general, it's not always part of the general curriculum of like just general finances, even for personal stuff. But where did you spend? So this means anything you spent money on goes in this category. It can be as simple as the printer ink for your printer, to, you bought those journals with whatever artwork you had on it, to education you spent if you took a course or something like that, online or in person. I mean, I'm sure I don't have to like go into all the detail of like where you can spend money, but everything you have spent for your business, you want to track. This is super important for taxes. It can help you not have to pay as many taxes. You want to try to spend, if you're buying stuff for your business, and this is hard when you first start off, I know, you want to try to use the income you have to buy those expenses, versus using your personal money, because if you're using your personal money, it doesn't count then when it comes to taxes. So that's something we did not know, honestly, when we started our business. So we lost a lot of money the first year and owed a lot more in taxes because we didn't realize the system we should have had. And so that is where, again, I know we've been in business for a long time, but you learn as you go. With tracking like what you have spent and then how did you spend it and where did you spend it, that's where it's super important, because that will also play into taxes. So if you, and this is no matter where you are, each will be a little bit different. If you bought a computer versus you took an educational course, those two things will count differently for taxes. And that kind of stuff. And so a computer has some different things that it will even maybe possibly go into the next year's, depending where you are, that kind of stuff. And so just track as much as you can. It's great. You can download sheets online. I'm not going to make one because I think there's other people out there that have done it. And then you can tweak those. You can do this in QuickBooks. There's an online version. There's a lot of different versions. I want to say it's like Honey or something. There's all these different ones. Google and figure out what would be best for you. Sometimes you are going to have to pay for an accounting feature like this. It's well worth it. We personally use QuickBooks, and if we didn't have it, I think when I did our stuff at the end of the year for taxes, my mind would be everywhere with it. So worth it. So first is, how did you bring in money? The second one is, how did you spend the money? And then this is not to do necessarily with anything that would come in play for like taxes or other stuff, but this is important. And I will say this as Pat is smiling right now. is how did you spend your time? And this may be harder if you are looking back and you think you spent your time on certain things. I would highly recommend tracking your time if you can. I know that sounds overly, I don't know, for a creative you would say that's really annoying.
No, it's helpful
But-
though. It's definitely helpful to understand where your time is, and then it allows you to then realize, are the things that you're spending time on really moving you forward in the things that you want to be accomplishing, or actually are you not putting that much effort into certain things that you thought you were? I mean, it's just good to understand where your time's going, just in general. So,
And your time is money. Like, I know that sounds weird, especially if you're starting off in business. Often we do just look at those and think, oh, this artwork, or I'm making custom things for people who are ordering stuff. And so as I make this custom doll, I'm just going to use that as an example. As I make this custom doll, my materials to make the doll are this much. Great, I know I'm making this much profit. You didn't take in your time either. And so if you think about, if you work for someone else, you are either getting paid a salary or hourly, one of the two. Figure out what you think your hourly rate is. There's different ways you can do that, but both of us have worked in industries where we did have to track our time because it was billed to a client. And so think of it that way. If you were working in an advertising agency or something like that, and then you were developing artwork for this certain ad campaign, you would be tracking how much time you were spending on that, because that would be taken into account and how much the client was paying, or whether or not the business made money off of it. Because you may not be paid hourly, but your salary and time is included in what they would have done. Or they may look at that and say, no more working on this, you're done where you're at, because we've spent too much time on this and we're not going to make money. So,
or you have to go back to the client and say, we actually need more money
need more.
because of the
so
process
think of it
or
that
whatever.
way, of like, think of yourself, even though you are small business, like think of it in those terms. If I were an agency and I have multiple employees, I would want to make sure I can pay for them and their work as well as materials too. So you may not be able to do this as clearly right now if you haven't done it over the year, but do start now. And you can use something simple. Toggle is what we use. TOGGL. I don't think there's an E. Now I'm questioning myself.
I don't think there's any.
There's a paid version and a free version. I just use the free version. You can make categories of things, and can put like, so I was sewing the doll, and then you go on and you press play. It runs, and then you stop it when you're done with that activity. I do this all the time because I'm really curious where our time is. You don't quite do it as much.
I probably should get
You probably should do a
more
little
into
bit
it.
more. But I think it's really helpful because then you can see whether or not maybe it takes you, this happened with Pat. He did these custom pieces for a while, and we were only charging $75 for it. We realized it took him 3 hours to do it, and then there was the cost of the materials and that kind of thing. 3 hours was actually not actually accurate.
So basically,
it was probably longer because when you go back with sketches with people and things like
so,
that.
I mean, I think we found out that I was making like, $10 an hour or something like that.
It was less than that. It was less than
like-
minimum wage, I think.
So it was just kind of like, okay, this isn't making any sense, and it's not profitable.
So we either had to raise the prices or get rid of the product. And so that is how you can make informed decisions when you track your time. The fourth question to ask yourself then is, how much did you pay yourself? This is what you paid yourself personally. So you should, from your business account, pay yourself an income then to your personal account. Again, that's how we keep things separate. You shouldn't just automatically use your business account for personal reasons, like to buy your groceries or something like that, unless you're buying groceries for an event you're hosting that has to do with your business.
Right.
See, that's how you make the difference. And that's why it's important to have the separate accounts. The reason why that is important is, in general, most places, your income that you gave yourself from your business, again, will affect your taxes too. It's also important to know that because you may have a goal if you are doing this part-time for right now. Or just in the evenings, and you would really love to quit your job at some point, that you have a full-time job and you would really love to quit that. You need to know how much income you can take, not the income your business takes. That is totally different, because you will have all those expenses and things like that for your business. just like how your business, wherever you work, pays you. They have expenses and everything too, and then they have everyone's salaries that they pay. And so thinking of it as the same way of like there's this pool of money the business brings in. First is going to be the expenses that come out and taxes and things like that, and then I can pay myself. How much and what does that look like? So tracking that and figuring out then what do you want to do with that coming up? And then how much did you pay in taxes, or are you going to? So in the United States, for instance, like taxes, you do all your taxes in April timeframe, but the year is from January to December. And so with that, you can already figure that out and figure out how much in taxes you may need, or you have somebody that does that for you, or you can see how much you paid last year and sum that up for this year. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with the taxes thing. This is again where you would either want to do a lot of research, get a program that helps you with it, or depending where your business is, hire somebody. If it is really confusing for you, I cannot recommend enough to hire somebody. It is well worth the money. I did what was the first year.
Or you might be lucky and have a friend who can
maybe you have a friend, exactly.
Like,
still pay them something, or take them out to a nice dinner or something. They do it for you, because it is a lot of work on their part too. But there are, just like we're knowledgeable in whatever you are doing as your craft and that kind of thing, and for your business, so are these people that do taxes and understand it and understand every year something changes and that kind of thing. There are, like I said, if things are fairly simple for you, there are programs you can use and that kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to name them because they probably won't exist anymore. There are ones that are like that. I did do that for the first couple years, and then our business got to a certain place where I was like, I don't know how to answer these questions anymore. And I think I might be paying more in taxes than I need to as well. And so that's when we hired somebody, and it is... So, I mean, I literally am able to send you have to track all of this though. Send all of our information to them, and they will come back with some questions possibly, and then it's done. It's so nice. Where that would probably take me weeks upon weeks to do on my own, to shift through all that stuff and sift through it. So, all right, that's a lot, I know. And you guys are maybe asleep by now. I don't know. Maybe not. If you are new in business, you're like, yes, this is super helpful. Why you want to do all of this at the end of the year, or definitely doing it throughout the year or each quarter, is because you want to be able to make a plan for the new year. And when I say that, I know it's hard because we have talked so much about like going slow into the year and things like that. But when it comes to your finances and your business, you really do need to think about that and think through a plan. And so if I personally want my personal income to be at this, so that I can, whatever your goal may be in there, I can leave my full-time job once I hit this point. Well, then you have to figure out how much income your business needs to make versus your expenses. And as you bring in more income for your business, your expenses will go up too. That's just normal. And so then that will then determine what percentage can you take as your income. That is up to you. There's all kinds of theories of what that percentage should be. So you do some research on what you think. We follow a certain method that is in the book called Profit First. Some people don't like that though. It has worked really well for us, and how much we make sure we're saving for taxes, income, what our expenses should be at. We're not where I want to be yet with it, but we'll get there. But figuring that out and understanding that. And then also it's helpful because you can look back on the year and see, there will be certain months depending on what your business sells and stuff like that are going to be higher income months for your business and ones that are lower. And that helps you plan for those dips that happen, because no matter what business, I think that is the case. As far as having, depending on what you're selling, typically the end of the year is pretty good because people are wanting to buy stuff for holidays and things like that. So that's something to think about. What it does then is you can then create a budget for the new year. You can create a budget for, and again, if you're starting this at the end of January, who cares? Start from February on. That's perfectly fine. Whatever your starting point is when you're listening to this or watching this. And creating a budget just means you're figuring out what your expenses are going to be, what you hope to do as far as the income for the business, and what you're saving for taxes and sending as an income to yourself. The reason why that's so important is because then you can check how you're doing, and don't be so hard on yourself, because if you're really new, you're not going to know what to expect month to month as far as the
Sure.
dips and turns of sales in the month. You'll learn as you go. If you're new, also, it's really hard. We did this so many times where I was like, we're going to go from making this amount of money to this giant amount of money all in a year. And while that is great, and I do believe that we should have big hopes and dreams and stuff like that, like if you're going to do that, there's going to have to be a way that is going to happen. And so do gradual up as you can. That does not mean that certain things can't happen, that you experiment with something and suddenly your income goes up, or a big freelance job or something like that. So just be wise in setting those numbers. And I guess the word I want to use is like, so you're not setting a really high expectation to then feel a really low disappointment.
I think just being patient. I know that's really hard, especially when you want to try to grow something to a certain point, but being patient with it is really key.
It does not mean to not set your like goals high though. Like we have some pretty high goals in our business, and with that, we're always looking at ways that we can get there. But then we're also celebrating the small wins. And so, you know, if it means when you look back on this, you realize like you had thought you made a certain amount in your business last year, and it was actually 2,000 less than you thought it was. You were still really close. If you were nowhere near close of what you were hoping it to be, that's okay. Look back and see on some of these financial things, some of the maybe the tweaks and stuff. Maybe your expenses are too high. That is almost always what happens. Is we think we need to be doing or using all these different programs, or we need,
or staying up to date on all the things, or whatever.
Sometimes you could look at your materials and you can find a more you could buy in bulk, or things like that, that there's more cost effective ways to get that stuff too. Ask other people to do similar things. In general, people are okay with sharing that. Sometimes they do have something that they want to keep as like a secret's not the right word.
Hidden secret,
I don't know what the right word is.
Special sauce.
But that's okay. And that's okay. Respect people if that's the case and they don't answer you on those things. You can be in Facebook groups of similar people, or any kind of group or online community type of thing.
I feel like most people are pretty open though.
Yeah, most people are. Some people move on, ask somebody else if you want to. I will say though, don't just reach out to people. We have this happen a lot. Where people will just reach out to us that we've never heard of before and that kind of stuff, asking us questions. We're happy to answer, but sometimes those people are so persistent that we've not gotten back with them right away. And they're like, I sent you a message and then this and then that, and it's only been a week and we haven't gotten with them. Like, we will get back to you, but we're getting through the other stuff first.
I think to
be respectful.
Like, if you are going to try to reach out to other people just to ask questions, make sure that they're somebody that is like a couple steps ahead of you. Because if you ask somebody that's maybe in the same position as you, they might have the same questions as you, or things like that. And so I think I guess it doesn't hurt, but at the same time, I think if you reach out or talk to people that are a little bit ahead of you, hopefully they're going to have the answers, or at least
they've tried something.
They've tried some things to get them to a certain point.
And that could literally mean just one step ahead of you too.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be. And I recommend reaching out to those kinds of people versus the person that is like been in business for 10 years versus somebody that's been 3 years in business ahead of you. You have a lot to learn from that other person too, 100%, but you have different kinds of things to learn from them maybe than others. Yeah. Don't reach out to that person that's way ahead of you on those things and say, what paper do you use? Use do reach out to those people, or see if they're like teaching anything and that kind of stuff, because they'll have knowledge that you can use, and that kind of stuff. And so do your research before you ever sign up for stuff like that, of course. But that's how to maybe learn about expenses. We even have some simple things as we looked back on the year of some things that were like, oh, I think there might be a cheaper way, because we're using like 3 or 4 different programs to all make this one thing work. And then I realized, I think if we just spend a little bit of our time, it does involve our time, but if we spend a little bit of our time, we could literally save $100 or a little bit more per month. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it does add up in the end, because that's maybe $100 more we could pay ourselves in that month, to not have those expenses that maybe aren't quite working quite well. So that's why this is important.
Yeah.
So I know this might seem like, it might seem basic. It might seem like I don't want to do this because it's not fun. If it's basic to you, you can go, like I said, you can go much deeper into this stuff. We go much deeper. We have spreadsheets plus QuickBooks plus, all these different things that way that I track, like what's selling well, what's not, what income we got from it, what we didn't, all of that. But if you're starting off and are very new in business and everything like that, this is super important. Please track your numbers. Please pay attention to your finances. And these basic questions that we'll have a download for you are going to help you, because they're going to help you just be able to go through those things and get set up, so then each year you can build upon it and go into more detail if you want to. But please don't just ignore the finances. I do feel like the first couple years, don't feel guilty if you have.
Well, because you're so excited about the thing that you're actually creating or doing or whatever, and so. And as long as money's coming in, you're not really thinking about that. You're just like go kind of thing. So.
But if you want to have a business that actually brings money in as an income for you personally, and a business that is thriving, you have to pay attention to this stuff, because you could really find out that you are actually losing money creating whatever it is that you're creating, or
not charging enough, or spending too much time on something when there's just
those three things are the most common we see when people reach out to us or we've helped coach people in their businesses, is definitely that they're spending too much money on something and they're not making any money off of it. And when they look at it, they're like, oh, I'm sitting out and spending all this time and I'm losing money. That's not where, you learn from it. If that's the case, you're going to learn from it and it'll be great. The spending way too much time on it, we still occasionally do that. We're like, oh, we didn't charge enough for that. You learn from it and you make a change. And so, it's often the case that people just aren't charging enough for their products. And that kind of stuff when it comes down to the time and the expense.
It's more about they're not charging enough for your time, or they're forgetting about the time. I think a lot of times is time. But I think, again, it's more of like, oh, I've, at least our experience, creating something, realizing, maybe kind of throwing in the idea of how much it costs to, to buy the thing, to do this, to do that, but then totally forgetting about how much time, because you love what you're doing. You love it. You're excited about it. You're just so in it that you forget, actually, oh, I've just spent 10 hours on this and I've only charged $60. Well,
which is what we used. Yeah.
That's not helpful. That's not making any money for you.
No.
And so, again, it's just taking a step back and evaluating these things.
And that's why we said track your time. Yeah. I know it sounds horrible. If you only need to do it for a few months, that's fine. And then if you introduce a new product or something, start tracking your time for that, so then you know what to charge for that. And that's why we said that gave the example of the one product that Pat was doing custom and stuff like that, because it is important. We know this part is not maybe you may be somebody that actually loves this. Probably wasn't
a very exciting podcast to listen to, I'm sure.
Hopefully it's helpful though, and it is directed to you guys who some of you may be in business for several years and haven't touched this stuff, and that's okay. Dive into it, go after it. Do set a time aside for this in your week. If you need to give yourself a couple hours a week to do this and dive through this, it's really important. It is not the most fun part of business. Some people really enjoy it though. The majority of us, especially in the creative sector, I would say probably don't enjoy it. But if you don't do it, you won't be able to build your business. You won't be able to learn from things, and you won't be able to have kind of that stepping stone. And you will end up spending a whole lot more time when it comes to whenever your taxes are due, because no matter what, you have to pay taxes. And so you will spend a whole lot of your time, if you haven't been doing this stuff throughout the year, during that time, and it makes it super stressful if you haven't been tracking things. So again, we'll have these questions for you to download, and you can always reach out to us. We're not financial experts. We can point you to some things that will help you, but these are just kind of the basics that will get you started. So let us know if you have other questions. Sorry that I talk for most of the time and not Pat. I'm sure we'll have another one where you talk more about other stuff than I do. But let us know what other business questions you have, because we'd love to help you more in business and getting you just set up for doing what you want to do and doing what you love, but also making a profit from it too.
Yeah, as I say,
Yeah, so we will talk to you next time, and take care, and see you soon.
See you, bye.
Bye.